Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. From the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network for movie talk, and the Schmoes Know, this is Meet the Movie Press, roundtable movie news and commentary from the industry's premier film journalists.
Man, I love that tune.
One of my favorite songs.
It is. And welcome to the Age of Ultron Meet the Movie Press Day. It is Avengers Day, Casual Friday. I am Mark Riley, editor-in-chief of schmoesknow.com.
And I'm Jeff Snyder, film reporter, the Rap.com?
The Rap, yeah.
I don't know. What did I just say?
I don't know, but it works.
We're off to a good start, folks.
It works. Yeah, guys, we are on the Popcorn Talk Network. It is Friday, which means it's Meet the Movie Press, and it's a big one. We have a fantastic guest, and
I'm so excited about today.
We've been trying to get this guy on, I think, ever since we started.
When we actually came up with the idea for the show, we were like, what kind of people would we want to have on it? And we got this guy was at the top of the list.
Yeah, he was like number one, I think. So it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna bring him in a second, but. How are you guys doing out there watching live? We are on youtube.com/popcorn talk. And I see all of you chiming in right now. Thanks for tuning in. And please, no spoilers for Age of Ultron in the chat room. I have yet to see it.
Really?
Yeah. I'm seeing it tonight.
What good is... Oh, so was that on purpose? Or?
It was on purpose. I love to see... I had a chance to go to the press screening. Two of them that I could have gone to, but it didn't really work with my schedule. And then I decided I wanted to take my girlfriend in the crowd, opening night, just do it up with all the fans because I love it that way. So again, guys, please, no spoilers. You were ruining it last night in the Schmoes main show. They were dropping major spoilers. So, but guys, we're going to talk about all the news that broke this week. We're going to talk about some interesting topics of casting. We've
got a great show, and so let's just dive in.
Just do it. I know I was riffing.
I want to handle the announcement.
Please do.
Okay.
Please do.
Today's guest is very near and dear to my heart. He is best known perhaps as Moriarty.
Yes.
From Ain't It Cool News, which is where I started my career, and now he writes under his own name.
I know.
At HitFix. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Drew McWeeny to the Movie Press.
Drew, you can't hear it yet. Throw those cans on. But you are getting a huge round of applause. Of the canned applause.
One of the godfathers of movie blogging, folks.
It's absolutely
inspired
true.
a generation. I think so.
It's absolutely true. Drew, thank you for coming on, finally.
It's my pleasure, man.
These guys on Twitter have been mentioning you so many times. When are you getting Drew on? And yeah, let's start with Ain't It Cool News, because my God, I've been following you for years. I was following you at Ain't It Cool News, and you too, Mira Jeff.
Sure, but
I mean, it was so funny when I found out you did too. I'm like, oh my God, I know these guys.
That's one of my favorite things is when people roll up on me and tell me that they had sent us stuff. First time I sat down with Bill Hader, he told me I used to send you test screening reviews.
That's
I was
hilarious.
like, are you serious?
Did he have like a name?
I think he
that
did.
We can go back and look up.
I don't remember what the name is.
Priceless.
And then the guy who just wrapped Pete's Dragon this week for Disney, David Lowery, was our festival guy for 8 years, something like that.
I had no idea about
that.
Under
Ghost Boy. So it's strange. I love seeing the guys that have sent us stuff and hearing that from people years later, and it's amazing how long it's been.
So how did you link up with Harry and become a part of that sort of movement, which was among the first?
It was by fighting with him, essentially. I met Harry in the news group days before anybody really had any movie sites up.
Yeah.
And I remember the first thing I think we really butted heads on was we had both read drafts of Independence Day and Mars Attacks. I was firmly in the Mars Attacks camp. I thought that script was hilarious. He was firmly in the Independence Day will be the bigger movie camp. He was right. But at the time, I just refused to. I hated that screenplay so much, and I was like, "No, you're completely wrong." And that butting heads happened over and over. And so there came a point where I would send him corrections on things, and he finally wrote me back and said, "Listen, if you know this stuff, why are you waiting until I put something wrong up? Just send me information and things." And he wooed me to the dark side, evidently, and then it just kind of went from there. And it was a gradual process. Like, by the time I realized, okay, this is what I'm doing, I've been doing it for a while. So...
Very cool.
And you've had some epic battles in your day, script reviews, test screening reviews, things like that. What have been some of like the most memorable, not clashes with studios, but things where like, you knew it was serious?
When you get calls from people who demand to meet you in person because of something you wrote, it gets a little scary and sweaty. And at the early days, I had really no idea how to handle it. Because I wrote under the pseudonym for a while for protection. Like, I originally used the spy name as a buffer. As, okay, well, I can say these things, I'm free to say these things, and nobody in my industry will hold them against me.
Because you're a screenwriter as well, so you know...
I was a Writers Guild member before I ever met Harry. I've been working since '93 professionally. Mm-hmm. That was when I first sold something, and I've been in Los Angeles now. This summer will be my 25th year here, which means I'm very, very old.
No, I'm with you. You got 5 years on me, so that's whatever.
What is that feeling like for you when you get a hold of something early and you're like, oh my god, here's like the script for Star Wars or whatever it may be?
Well, like infamously, I was banned from Lucasfilm for many, many years. That they would not allow me on any Lucasfilm property. I wasn't allowed to I wasn't allowed to go to press screenings of anything, and I still wouldn't trade that for the experience that I had with that first time when I got the script for Phantom Menace, which was just the beginning.
Mm-hmm. That's where I got involved with Andy Koo. Please continue.
I had a friend that lived here in LA, and his family was up in Palo Alto, and we were going to go there for Thanksgiving. And I had gotten the screenplay a day and a half earlier. So for the drive to Palo Alto, we just put on the Star Wars CDs, and I read the screenplay while he was driving.
Oh, that's great.
And still my favorite experience with the Phantom Menace, because I had this picture in my head of how that would work. Mm-hmm. And it was very different than what we finally saw. But I really believed, and that first reading, that was an experience I wouldn't trade. And yeah, I mean, I took some heat for that, and it hurt for a while, but it was still, it's not to be ahead of other people. It is because I am so innately curious and always have been. And there's that since growing up as an outsider, when you live in a place other than LA, that it is a closed, walled off thing, and that you'll never get inside and figure it out. Mm. And I think that was one of the main things that drove me into it. And then the other thing was the test screening process. Mm-hmm. I mean, the real reason that I finally heavily invested was I wanted to tear the test screening process down as it existed. I worked as a theater manager for many years when I moved here. And one of the theaters I worked at, we did almost all of Disney's test screenings and a lot of the Warner test screenings. So we had people in 2 or 3 times a week doing them. And I watched how the process worked. At its best, the filmmaker should be the one that the test screening is for. Mm. To listen to it with an audience, to see what works, to see what plays. At its worst, it is used by the studios as a tool to take films away from people. Mm. And what I noticed was NRG was all about that. Joe Farrell, who ran NRG, was proud of the fact that he had forced the change in Fatal Attraction. And no matter what money that movie made, they broke the movie when they changed the ending. Mm-hmm. They ruined it. It's thematically a garbage movie at this point. And
I love this.
And it's just because they wanted a more commercial version, which, fine, if that's what you're looking for. I understand it's a business. They made the right choice. But it was not the filmmaker's choice. And I saw it happen over and over. We did a test screening one time of Jimmy Hollywood, and Barry Levinson was there, and asked them not to hand out cards at the end. He said, I just want to sit in the room, and I just want to listen, and I'm going to ask like 2 or 3 questions. So he got up at the end, he asked 2 or 3 questions, asked everybody to stay in their seats, and then Barry walked out and got in his car, and they handed the cards out.
Oh, man.
And when I saw that, I was like, this is so clearly not for the filmmaker.
Right. It betrays that process.
And so I really became actively engaged in the idea that I was going to pants them repeatedly. I was going to get through their security every single time. I was going to write about things that I was not allowed to by them, mm-hmm. and I was going to embarrass them. And by the time I left Joe Farrell alone, NRG was done. We had broken their back. Nobody trusted them anymore. And other companies arose who do it right, who gave the power back to the filmmakers. And at this point, I think the process works again.
Do you know that there's that they have mugshots, I feel like, at these test screenings of us all?
The last one I ever went to was the one time
that you saw the mugshots?
They finally had gotten a picture of me from somewhere. But I used to stand in line, and it used to make me laugh, because I would stand in line. Joe Farrell himself would walk up and down the line talking about finding us. He would stand next to me, and then I would quote him in my review. I was like, you were right next to me. And it would drive him berserk. So
I wrote a review of Knocked Up for Ain't It Cool, and then when I tried to go see Funny People, I drove I took the day off work, drove 50 miles into the valley to go see this movie, and security picked me out of line, and I was like in disguise. I had like a hat, like a hood, like maybe I was too disguised.
Why am I hearing this for the first time ever?
Oh, yeah.
You're kidding me.
And I gave Knocked Up a great review, but I don't know, Judd didn't. I don't think Judd appreciated it.
Wow.
And I know you guys know Steve Weintraub, Frosty
from
Collider.
Collider.
I met him because of test screenings. When it was the early days of Ain't It Cool, Frosty was a rabid test screen attender. Like, he would go to every test screening and get cards for just as a fan.
Right.
Okay.
And he called me and he said, I have test screening passes for this thing called the Big Lebowski. Do you want to go? So that night I drove out, I met him, we got in line. Dead silent theater. It was one of the worst test screenings I've ever been to.
No.
And nobody was laughing. Nobody got it. And I was weeping during the movie laughing.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's for a particular audience, not
I
the
felt so out of my
really
place
is.
during that thing.
audience.
And I think one of the reasons Frosty and I ended up as friends is Frosty had a really good time that night as well. And it was just weird sitting in a room full of people who clearly had no idea what was happening.
And you two got it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a great way to meet somebody.
Now, did they change anything from that test screening? Because Big Lebowski is in my top 5.
No,
it absolutely is one of the greatest movies. So
I've gone to 2 test screenings of Coen Brothers movies.
Sure.
The only one that they've changed that I saw was Hudsucker Proxy, and all they did was lift one joke out, which is and I understand why, but it was a fall down funny joke.
Oh.
It was you know, the hula hoop montage.
Sure.
It's in the middle of that. They showed how housewives are using it. They showed all these people using the hula hoop. And then the last cut was to an obvious soundstage with like potted jungle plants where you could see the pots on the bottom. And it was a terrible jungle set. They had somebody who was in head to toe blackface, like in the 40s or 50s, doing the hula hoop saying, even our friends in darkest Africa love it. And again, silence in the movie theater.
Right. That's funny. But
Gone.
Yeah.
Gone completely by the time they come back. It was-
Yeah.
Now, I used to get such a sort of contact high when I would send things into Ain't It Cool, and Drew would do a little intro like, Moriarty here, Mirror Jeff sent in a review of some shitty movie.
Yeah.
And then there came the day where I learned that we would never get another Moriarty intro, and that he was going to be going to HitFix. So tell us about that decision to, leave an outlet that you were with for a long time, had established your reputation with, to sort of go and start this unproven thing.
It was a scary decision, and not one I made easily. They had come to me almost a year before we launched and said that they were this was Jen Sargent and Greg Elwood, who were the 2 founding partners in HitFix. And they approached me and Dan Feinberg, and I believe at that point Melinda Newman, who was at Billboard, and they wanted us to be their founding cornerstones of the editorial. And A, it was flattering, but B, I had just started a family, and I had just bought a house. And while Ain't It Cool is a institution and will never go anywhere, Ain't It Cool is not what I would call a successful business model. It is a fan site that is primarily still Harry's fan site.
Yeah.
And I think always will be. I don't think Ain't It Cool has ever become a business in the way that...
It's got the same site for the last 15
It's never
years,
changed.
Which I love and appreciate about it.
And
I do too.
And I do think that's Harry's choice. There was a point where, when I was still involved, we talked to venture capitalists and we talked to other people, and I saw him make the decision that he just would never be comfortable with anybody else having any leash on him. And so, but as a result, the site just isn't for anybody else to make money at. And I couldn't do it. Right. I couldn't do it anymore. And so what I needed editorial freedom, and I needed to be able to redefine myself, because as much as I loved Ain't It Cool in the audience, that audience stays the same age. That audience will perpetually be 15 to 25 years old. And I just wasn't anymore. And there are things I wanted to write about and film festivals I wanted to go to and things in the film world that I wanted to be able to share that just didn't fit at a fanboy site anymore. And so I would have never done Film Nerd 2.0 if I'd stayed there.
I wanted to ask you about that because, in some ways you're a traditional movie blogger. We all react to the news and castings, and you do reviews and interviews. But what I think differentiates you and makes you special is that you write about these larger bigger picture issues, whether it's parenthood, divorce, and you frame it in the context of movies. How important is that to you to be able to express yourself in those other areas of life about that?
I don't know that I could do it any other way. I literally don't know how to process a film without it being a personal response. And I don't think there's any value in me telling you whether you will like a movie or not, because I don't know. I can only tell you how it affects me and how I experience it, and the only value in that comes over time. If you have a relationship with a critic and you read that critic for years, you get a sense of where you fall with them and how you react to things versus how they do. The more honest you are and the more open you are, the better handle the audience has on you. And I think being a film fan is partial autobiography. I think what we love and what we're drawn to and what excites us and what speaks to us is us. It defines us in many ways. I think the personal stuff is part and parcel of writing about film, because every film I see rattles around in me and does something, or it has no value. And those movies that have no value, that really don't do anything to you, those are the ones that frustrate me the most.
Well, I think that's such an excellent point. Like, because I am fearful sometimes of bringing my personal life, but I've seen you do it, and I connect with it as a fellow divorcee.
You put yourself out there.
You put yourself out there, and yeah, it for me at least, I go, this guy's coming from the same kind of world I am. I trust this opinion. I've been trusting your opinion since the Ain't It Cool days. But do you find now, being over at HitFix, do you have, because I think about the Ain't It Cool, the talkbackers, okay? And they're a little rough, aren't they?
It's a toxic community.
It's pretty toxic.
It's a mosh pit.
It's a mosh pit. I'm thinking you don't have that there at HitFix. And do you ever get targeted for bringing in your personal life?
A little bit, and there are people that any place where you have a comment section, any place where you open it up to unfiltered responses, you're going to get people that are there simply to
tear you
draw
down
on the wall.
Yeah.
And there is certainly some of that. There are people that will get hung up on something. I wrote a piece not long ago about Eddie Murphy, and it was a piece that I felt, I wasn't thrilled to write it, but it really felt to me after seeing him at this Saturday Night Live thing, like, this guy is done. This guy just doesn't care. This guy doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to be Eddie Murphy anymore.
Yeah.
Which is fine. He's more than welcome to be that way. But it hurts as a first-generation Eddie Murphy fan. I just showed my boys Beverly Hills Cop 2 weeks ago, which was a through-the-roof crazy screening for them. It's maybe the hardest thing they've seen so far, and they could not get over it.
And how old are they?
10 and 7.
Okay.
And
I was 10 years old when my mom actually brought me to the theater for Beverly Hills Cop, or around that age.
It's amazing how well it plays for a young, because it feels like the craziest thing they've ever seen. It's not that crazy, but it feels
by today's
unbelievable.
standards, right? Yeah.
So, so I'm a first generation Eddie Murphy fan. When I wrote that piece, some troll got so hung up on it that for 3 weeks, every single article I put up, they came in to make an Eddie Murphy crack.
Oh,
Yeah.
boy.
And it's like, boy, did I get under your skin.
But for the most part, I think the comment section on HitFix features a lot of intelligent discourse.
I think
it's
so.
far more comments. Yeah, it's far more. And I've learned over the years, if somebody really wants to have a conversation with you, they'll email you.
Right.
People who really want to talk to you and with you will not just leave a comment.
Yeah,
and
they
go
don't
away.
want to open it up to
The comments are,
the public. Yeah.
I was here, and I think this, and
Right.
that's the comments. And that's fine. That's what it's for.
I used to comment all the time. It used to get me into all kinds of trouble, whether it was on
Ain't It Cool?
Ain't It Cool or Jeff Wells' blog or
Okay.
David Poland's blog, and yeah, well, I mean that's what I guess Twitter's for now.
Yeah. And I tend to not even pay attention sometimes, but the occasional time I'll get a troll and be like, oh.
And I just have a few more questions for Drew before we transition to like talking about the news and stuff. Like who are some of the critics who you grew up reading and inspired you?
It's funny. I just picked up the Kindle edition of Harlan Ellison's Watching. And Ellison is primarily known as a fiction writer and was a TV writer for many years, and I think has one of the great voices of the 20th century. He is an angry, crazy, worked up little man, and it's phenomenal. His fiction is hard-hitting still, but his film criticism, I find, is some of the most intensely interesting and knowledgeable film criticism I've ever read. And he is blisteringly funny, unbelievably caustic, and just has no use for films that he feels waste his time. And I learned that attitude is okay from him, that you don't have to just digest everything. Cale was a huge influence on me, of course. And Joe Bob Briggs, the first 2 books that Joe Bob published, I still think are some of the funniest criticism I've ever seen, and yet astute. He really understood why exploitation films are fun and didn't treat them as trash. He treated them as gems that are worth sifting through to find that magic. And I feel like that gave me permission to embrace the Kale end of things with the high end of art, and the Joe Bob Briggs end of things where low art is just as good. It's just different.
And whose reviews do you seek out now?
I will go to Rotten Tomatoes and just kind of click through. I don't have anybody I read religiously.
Okay. I
have a lot of people that I like to check in on, and it's mainly because I really like to check in on people that I don't agree with, because I do want to see why somebody else had such a radically different reaction to something than I did. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times I'll just wait and I'll see who's coming in really negative or really positive on something against my opinion. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to make sport out of reading every single word written about Fury Road. Mm-hmm. I'm so curious to see how people start to pull that apart.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that off air. I'm jealous that he got to see it.
Right,
yeah.
You've seen it.
And interesting what his take, and I hear what you're going to say about that. I can't wait.
I know, it seemed like Dickie liked it. From when he was tweeting.
Yeah.
Josh
well, we're all
Dickey
locked down until the 12th. But,
sure.
Yes, it's going to be fun after that to really see where people fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to do that after Age of Ultron tonight. I want to go out and check out the reviews.
And I guess since it is Ultron Day, I mean, where did you fall on the film, Drew?
I like Ultron. It's got some sequelitis. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit too big. And I think somebody told Joss Whedon that the problem with Man of Steel was that everybody gets destroyed in the end and it's just mayhem. Because in Age of Ultron, I think they went too far in the other direction. I feel like they on-camera save every single extra in the film.
Yeah.
There's about a 45-minute montage of them putting people on buses. And I'm okay with the idea of saving people. You might have gone too far in the other direction, though.
So that's the Man of Steel itis, I guess. It seems like they're with Batman v Superman. They're addressing that issue from Man of Steel too. Now they're apparently it's going into Marvel.
And I guess since you haven't seen the film yet, let me ask you: do you feel like the film's already been spoiled for you?
Somewhat.
Do you feel like you know every beat, like after being on Twitter the last week?
Yeah, well, not so much. There's some stuff that I've really covered my eyes and held my ears and everything. Good. But I feel like I got spoiled last night with a death because I think I heard that maybe it was just in the ether somewhat, and somebody did spoil it for me. I did hear that about the saving people. I read that somewhere. I've been trying to stay away from it, but it's really hard when you're running a site and have to put up the videos that people want to see, or some of the reviews, or your colleagues.
You have to watch it in order to write about and describe it.
Yeah, so I have been spoiled, but for the most part, not so much. I think I can go in pretty pure.
And you asked about reading stuff. Part of why, because I'd read Ultron, and I got in trouble with Disney about something that I mentioned. But the reason I did it wasn't just so I could say, nah. It's because I don't want to spend a year and a half writing up bullshit news stories.
Right.
I don't want to have to cover... When somebody says, and then the casting for, whatever character's not in the movie is that... And I'm like, but that's not right. That's not in the film. I would rather just have the information, cover what I believe is accurate, and then skip all the rumor mongering that happens. And it helped on Ultron. There was a lot I sat out. There was a lot of stuff that I just went, I'm not covering that. That's not right.
I really like that. It seems like I wish
you
have to do less work.
I wish we all had the luxury of doing that.
Yeah, so how often do you get a script, like these big scripts? And I just want to touch on Phantom Menace real quick because I'm a Star Wars geek. When you read it, turning the pages with the music, was it a good script?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it was that we had no idea how it would sound.
Yeah.
On the page, I still maintain, and I'm going to get yelled at in a moment, but I still maintain that the idea of what Jar Jar was supposed to be was not a bad idea.
I can buy that.
It's an old dramatic device. The fool who bumbles his way to success.
Mm-hmm.
There's an archetype that plays into that can be done very well.
Yeah.
I had no idea he would sound like that. And I think the first time I heard him speak was the first time I went, oh no. What did they do?
Yeah.
That's not right.
Misa think he'll be in trouble. I get that, and so so you get these scripts. So you got Age of Ultron, and I just want to know how often does that happen? Do you have somebody that gives it to you? Do you tell me that a little bit? I'm just curious.
By being in town as long as I have, there are resources you develop and people that you meet, and I'll give this free advice to any filmmaker who wants to keep his material completely secret.
Good.
don't give it to an agency.
Okay.
Don't hand it to anybody in an agency. They are leaky. That's all.
Yeah, I saw that in a lot of the Sony emails. They would blame the agents. The agents want to just something, blah, 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 blah.
They're not wrong. It's the leakiest place in town. The studios are pretty... I'll say this, Marvel, the best company at keeping their scripts locked up. Okay. They are the best. They have very few leaks. So
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, I wanted to segue to the news.
We should. This is Meet the Movie Press.
And how I actually landed Drew this week. So we just had a discussion online about Micah Monroe landing the female lead in Independence Day 2 as Bill Pullman's daughter instead of Mae Whitman. So where did you let's recap for those who missed it. So where did you fall on that, Drew? What were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are this. Micah Monroe, enormously talented. I think she's very, very good in It Follows. I thought she was great in The Guest, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it makes perfect sense based on what she's about to be in. I don't know if The Fifth Wave is going to work or not. It's another of these YA adaptations. We'll see. Those are giant gambles at this point.
Sure.
But they're counting on it working and her getting the bump and becoming a larger star so that when they have it, they're in a position like they were on First Class where, look, we have Jennifer Lawrence post-Hunger Games because we're awesome. And they got really lucky with that. So I think they're aiming for that. The problem is Mae Whitman's a working actor who is a bankable working actor and who's adorable. She's great. I thoroughly enjoy Mae Whitman on film. The idea that they didn't go to her at all, that it was not a conversation, that they didn't even ask her, that's what bothers me. And I feel like if you're going to do a sequel where you're going out of your way to bring original cast members back and to try and keep a continuity alive, and you have an actor who's already played that role well, why don't you start there?
Yeah. And I noticed that from your article. There was a short list, and she wasn't even on it.
No.
Which is astounding to me.
And I've confirmed since she was not approached. It was not a conversation.
Well, because I'm sure it was a decision of, are we either going to use her or not? And so the answer was no. So from the start, there was no consideration. They just weren't using her. Now, I took issue with the words where you just said that role. If she's played that role, because that role is very different. So Jeff Goldblum is going to be the same Jeff Goldblum that you saw in the first film, and the same with Bill Pullman and Judd Hirsch and Vivica Fox. But we're talking about a 7-year-old or 8-year-old girl who's now, in her early 20s, and it is a different role.
If there was a role in Jurassic World for the two kids, do you believe they get Joe Mazzello?
No. I think that those two kids would come back.
I do too.
I do think that.
But I guess it depends on the role.
To get Joe Mazzello.
Because those two were like the leads. It was like, these iconic young kid roles. I don't think that the kid in Independence Day really stood out where it's like you're going to really notice.
Here's the other comparison. It's one I made in the article. If they made a True Lies sequel, and I know Cameron's talked about it over and over, I think the most natural sequel is the first movie's about marriage and about keeping secrets in marriage. The second movie would have to be about their daughter getting married and keeping secrets from the in-laws.
Ooh, I like that.
And it would be Father of the Bride with a body count.
That's a great pitch.
But you should work in development.
But who was the daughter in True Lies? Eliza Dushku.
Yeah.
They would so cast Eliza Dushku to lead that film.
But I still think that she was recognizable, like at 14 or whatever. It's still the same face.
It's still,
the 7-year-old Mae Whitman doesn't necessarily translate to early.
Well, here's my sorry.
And there's one more point before you go. The other part of it is that this sequel is built around a man named Liam Hemsworth,
right?
Yeah.
And so there has to be chemistry or some kind of
sure.
Spark like that, and I think that Micah makes more sense.
Watch Parenthood. She had 2 great romantic subplots on that series, and both dudes well into the Liam Hemsworth category of dudes, and completely believable and great chemistry.
I like Mae Whitman and would have liked to seen her return, but I don't think it's necessarily like she automatically deserves that role because she played it as a 7-year-old.
No, but she deserves the conversation.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think for me it's more of a fan service. Like, I remember seeing Independence Day. I loved it in the theaters. I thought it was fun. It's aged not very well for me, but as a fan, I would just love to see the continuity continue with her. And then knowing that she's such a great actor that I'm actually a fan, I would love for her to do it. I see this as a business. I think I'm on your side with this, and his article on it was great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. It may be more of a business decision than a creative decision.
Yeah.
I think to say that is kind of a slag on Micah because maybe it was just her talent. Maybe she would have beaten Mae Whitman out head to head if she had that opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah, it's complicated. I thought it raised a really interesting issue though, because we didn't have the same. There was no uproar when Jesse Usher was cast as the stepson. When the kid who was in the original, he is technically still a working actor. He hasn't had a career Mae Whitman had.
A decade.
No, he's got. I saw some credits on IMDb that are in post production, things that are supposed to come out this year, or next year.
All right.
I forget the young actor's name. Obviously, he's not in the position Mae Whitman's in.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point actually, though, because he is a working actor, so why not go to him? But
and
again, it seems business.
It's one thing to pay fan service by casting the same actor in a role depending on the size of the role, but when that role is the female lead of your movie, I don't think that you can just say, oh, it's fan service. This person gets it.
I think that's the end of the day conversation. We don't know, unless you guys have read the script. We don't really know what the script is and whether or not, you're right, Mae is right for it in the way it's written. We don't know that, I guess. But I still stand, I would love to see her be a cast in it.
And I just like that, it's funny when Anna Kendrick kind of reignited the flames by, tweeting that out. It's a conversation worth having.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
But we can move on.
All right. Let's move on.
What do you want to talk about, Mark? You pick.
Well, I think that what everybody in the chat room is talking about is when are we going to have a name for Spider-Man?
3 hours.
In 3 hours. You heard it here, folks.
Set your watches.
Set your watches.
Now.
I think he's kidding, by the way.
I am.
There was 5 names came out. Was that you? It was.
So
you.
yes, I put some names out, and listen, are all 5 names the final 5 names? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that there were probably 2 or 3 names on that list who were in real contention. And like I have said before about shortlists, 1 or 2 names who may have been red herrings.
Okay. I like that. Well, so going around the internet is Asia?
Right, that was Latino Review.
Latino Review,
right?
Yep. They said that it's kind of his, right? Is that? Are you guys?
That's what they think.
Picking up. Okay.
What are you hearing, Drew? I feel like you've got secrets up your sleeve.
I have not heard who they're picking, and my feeling is they are being very, very careful because whoever they're making a commitment to, they're making a commitment to for a long time. Mm-hmm. This is the youngest they've ever cast one of these Marvel leads, and it's on purpose. They are tired of Spider-Man aging out in 2 films, and they are very aware of the fact that part of the appeal of Spider-Man is that he's a kid in an adult's world, and I think they really want to explore that some. I think if you're going to put him in a room with the Avengers, he needs to look like a kid because that suddenly becomes... It's something we haven't seen yet, which is the younger generation merging into that older generation. And that's going to be a major part of this next wave of Marvel is these guys are about to start aging out. These guys are about to start tapping out on these characters. So now introducing new cast and bouncing them off of them, it's important for Marvel to stock that pond and develop their own new movie stars because these guys are going to have to carry this company, not just a series or one film. They're going to have to carry the company forward once Cap and Thor and Iron Man are done, right?
Now, I mean, I talked to a lot of the sort of all-star movie bloggers at Cinemacon, which I want to talk about in a bit.
Yeah, we want to talk about that.
And so we sort of swap notes on things, and it sounds like Marvel is serious about wanting a kid with specifically zits. They want zits.
Okay.
They want awkwardness. They do not want a leading man look.
And this is what I love about what Marvel is doing with this direction of Spider-Man is that for me as a huge comic book Spider-Man fan, it's holding true to the source. And that's what I've missed on all the Spider-Man movies.
So here's the problem with that. For these kinds of movies, you really need a kid who's 18 who can work a full day. Yeah. Okay, because kids have certain restrictions as far as the hours.
How old are these guys? The 5.
So these guys are all 18 except for Nat Wolff, who's 20. I think one of them may be 19, but they're all 3 of them are 18. One's 19, and Nat Wolff is 20. He's the oldest one. So Nat I think Nat is really Amy Pascal's choice. Amy Pascal loves Nat Wolff.
Okay.
Nat Wolff, he's obviously the oldest on the list. He's 6'1", So he's built like a man, not like a boy. Mm-hmm. And I think that is the biggest thing working against him. I think personality-wise and what they're sort of looking for, on paper, he may be the best fit. The other thing about Asa, Asa may very well be the front runner. He is smaller. I think he's like 5'10", though. He's not a tiny guy.
Yeah, no, I interviewed him. He's taller than me. I'm short.
He also is capable of carrying the weight of this franchise because he has done it before, and that is a unique factor.
Yeah, twice in big movies. When you're a kid and you're carrying a Martin Scorsese film,
right?
That's a lot to ask of any young actor.
Maybe the most expensive Martin Scorsese film.
I think he did it beautifully. Ender's Game is it's not his fault.
Of course not.
He's
and he was good.
And now he's doing Tim Burton's movie. So this, he is a kid who can handle being in the spotlight, can handle the weight of a production. And obviously this is a risky casting thing. There's a lot riding on this decision.
Yeah, and I feel the fans are not crazy about him because he doesn't scream Peter Parker. At least the diehards.
Asa, you're talking about.
Yes,
okay.
Asa. He's not so much Peter Parker. I tend to disagree. I think he's a good actor, so he can do it. I just don't know if the fans are completely on board. When you dropped that and there was the 5 names, so many tweets came into me. They're like, I don't like any of them. And I'm like, wow, really?
Were all of those tweets from Dylan O'Brien fans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because guys, Dylan's not getting it because he's too good looking. He is too much of the leading man look that they do not want for this character.
That's very interesting. They want zits. I think
they want zits. That is literally the word that I heard.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know when we're going to see that news drop. I expect it to be probably in the next 2 weeks.
It's got to be soon because he's going to be in Civil War. They've got to start, and they're shooting, so it's happening. They've got to close the deal. They've got to nail him down.
Yeah. Well, I think it is going to be coming soon.
I don't think it's going to take long to close a deal because I think there's like a deal on the table and you either take it or you don't.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be much negotiation. But they want to be super.
Yeah, they want
to be super sure.
Okay, well, that's our Spider-Man section of Meet the Movie Press, and thanks, guys, on the YouTube channel. I see all your stuff here. El Mayimbe is dropping in to say hello as well. I love that.
But Mayimbe's got a new site coming out, guys.
That was big news this week.
Latino
review.
Congrats.
End of an era.
Way. Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's kind of for me at least, it was like, ain't it cool?
A huge congrats to our friend Umberto, who's a friend of the show.
Yep.
I think he's going to have a lot of success over there. I know I'm excited to see what he comes up with. And I thought Kelvin at Latino Review wrote a really touching post, a nice farewell.
Yeah.
Those guys have been through a lot together. Mayimbe survived cancer, and I liked what he said on Twitter just about how having cancer sort of made him reprioritize things, and he's going to give it a shot while he still can.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, why not?
Best of luck, and you actually don't need it. You're really good at what you do, and please, when is he going to come back on? We got to get him back on.
We are going to have him back on maybe towards the end of the month.
There you go.
All right. We got to give him some time. He's busy.
All right, so Drew, you didn't go to Cinemacon this year.
I did not.
I like what you said off air, which you have to sit and watch trailers once a year, and you don't want to do it twice. Cinemacon is like that. It's an extended trailer sometime where they kind of throw out the wares that they're going to be pushing on you over the summer. Jeff, how was it?
So I was in heaven.
Yeah.
We should talk about the first one that everyone should have seen by now. Have you guys seen the Black Mass trailer?
Yes.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I'm so on his movies so far. Like I think the guy has talent, but the last one out of the furnace, I was just
Scott Cooper. Okay,
Scott,
I thought you were talking about Johnny. Okay,
the writer director. So when you look at the movie, to me it's immediately it feels like he's got his hands on something that he can really dig into. Bulger's a great character. It's a worthwhile story to try and do, and it looks like Johnny Depp showed up.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah,
it has been a while since I felt like this about a Johnny Depp film. So I'm excited. I'm a fan from the Dead Man era, from when he was making movies that 9 of us saw and loved.
Yeah,
and that seemed to be every film. I'm excited. I want him to get back into this kind of work, and I'm hoping that it does well because he follows the heat. He follows what audiences are telling him to do now. Please go see Black Mass, please, so that he gets that message to do more of that. Please.
Yeah.
Mark, what'd you think?
I adored it. I loved it. I watched it 3 times in a row just to see he has so many layers going on in just that one scene of him at the dinner table. And it was very reminiscent of Goodfellas for me, which I absolutely love. Goodfellas is one of my favorite. You know, I feel it's almost an intentional nod to Goodfellas. So I loved it.
As a Boston guy who has taken a keen interest in the Whitey case, I thought it looked great. I was definitely one of those guys who, when that announcement was made that Johnny Depp was going to play Whitey Bulger, I was like, bullshit. I definitely slagged that, but he looked awesome. I think David Harbour is one of the best character actors working right now, and his reactions in that dinner table scene were priceless. Scott Cooper, I think, has made 2. I actually liked Out of the Furnace more than most. I think he's made 2 good movies. I don't think he's made a great movie yet. Yeah. And I think that this could be it, and it could be... I think it could be very successful along the lines of The Departed. I know it doesn't have DiCaprio.
I think he's got chops, Cooper, and I think he's also got ambition. He's a guy that wants to make big movies.
Yeah.
So...
No, it looks great. I mean, you know, I was getting tweeted already with Oscar talk. They're like, "Oh, Oscar." I'm like, well, it looks
we
the
love
part.
to do that.
Yeah, and it looks like an Oscar caliber performance, and what the Oscars love to nominate. So
I'll try and zoom through the rest really quick, and get your take, because I know you guys haven't seen some of these trailers. I mean, The Revenant.
Thank you.
From Iñárritu was the highlight of Cinemacon. It totally stole the show.
Really,
it's Labowski, Chivo shooting in all natural light. It just looked crazy intense. I don't even know where they put the camera on some of these shots. Wait until you guys see.
I can't wait. It's such a great cast, and
if I was Fox, I would just release what I showed at CinemaCon, because there's like a text preamble before where it's like, you know, on the surface, The Revenant is like just like a revenge movie about, you know, one man's survival, but look beneath the surface and it has this, and it was like, oh my god,
that's great.
The Martian with Matt Damon looked really cool.
It's really exciting.
Have you read the ebook?
I have, and I've read Goddard's adaptation, and Goddard's a really smart writer, and I think he made all the smart choices in terms of what he did. It's a great concept. I'm baffled that Damon took that and Interstellar back to back,
and Chastain,
because they're really similar, and Chastain as well. They're really, really close.
Yep.
I would have done one or the other, not both, but. You know, I'm sure they'll both be great in it. Damon's the right guy to carry a movie where he's largely by himself, because there is such a empathetic likability to him. Matt's very easy in terms of opening himself up, making you invest. So I think it's like with Castaway. You have to get the right guy on the island. I think you have to strand the right person on Mars. I'm praying Ridley Scott pulls it off. It's been you talk about somebody who's been a while for it.
He's been on a rough patch. I have
not been a fan for a while now.
I know you hated Exodus. I liked it more than most. Ooh. You hated it. I remember that review.
Yeah, and I didn't like it either. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't like it.
What else?
What else was there?
Creed looked really good.
Okay,
good. With Michael B. Jordan.
Good. Yeah,
I mean, I think he's a fantastic young actor. I like that it's taking that franchise in a new direction and casting Rocky in a new light.
I never would have believed that he would have figured out a way to get the Rocky series back on track.
Right.
But Rocky Balboa was so enjoyable, and the notion of him being Mickey now, basically.
Yeah,
him having matured into the Mickey role. I like that, and I actually want to see him play that guy now. I want to see a Balboa out of the ring trying to get somebody else to do it. I think I'm excited now.
I mean, I should probably save this idea, but someone needs to write an article about boxing movies and the allure and the romanticism of boxing movies, because not only does Michael B. Jordan have one, but and these are 3 of our finest actors. Jake Gyllenhaal and Miles Teller is playing Vinny Paz. Those are like 3 of the best young actors in Hollywood, and they all went and did boxing movies within the same year. There's something to that.
It's interesting.
Part of it is the physical challenge.
Yeah.
You know, every actor loves a physical challenge, or there's certain actorly things that they can't help but get excited about. When I saw the trailer for Legend this week, the Tom Hardy movie where he's playing both of the Krays,
right?
I would imagine that it took about 11 halves of a second for him to go, yes, I'm playing 2 gangsters, yes. What a treat for an actor to be able to chew on 2 psychotic roles in one movie. So I think
that looked good.
There's a lot of times, as soon as they hear what it is, they're like, oh, that means I get to train and I get to look like, yes, all right, and they're in.
Well, I wanted to ask you if we could move to an interesting kind of reboot that you said was funny, Vacation.
I was just about to bring that one up.
Yeah, because I'm such a fan of the original. It's one of my favorites.
Guys,
and
Vacation looks hilarious.
Really?
It's going to be huge.
I promise you.
Great.
They just moved it up from Friday to Wednesday.
They know what they have.
They don't really put out bad movies on a Wednesday.
There
you
you
have to be
go.
kind of confident.
I've heard it is their highest testing comedy since the first Hangover.
Oh.
They are confident it works. And the clip they showed, I heard killed.
It did. It was very self-referential.
Okay.
They're not sweeping the other vacation movies under the rug by any means.
Yeah,
Chris Hemsworth looked hilarious
I've heard he steals a giant chunk of the movie.
with his giant penis.
Yeah, it was about a month and a half ago that somebody first told me, when you see Hemsworth in this film, it will change the way you think of him.
Good.
That's great. Good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he needs that. You know.
The youngest son stole every line of dialogue out of that kid's mouth. Killed.
Okay.
So I think it could be really special.
Well, I'm with you. I think the original is a truly great screenplay.
Oh yeah.
Horrifically dark. I don't think people remember that.
No.
It's breathtaking in places how dark that movie is.
It really is. I mean,
You have not showed your kids that one yet, have you?
No, it's a long time before they see that.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and maybe one of the reasons why I still love it so much. It had balls back then, you know. Well, that's good to hear because again, Vacation. At first I thought it was a reboot. I thought they were just cashing in on the brand, and then to hear it's like kind of a continuation with Ed Helms, it's perfect.
A great natural idea to have Rusty try and recreate a family vacation with his family.
It makes sense.
That's as smart a way back in as they could have found.
Yes. Absolutely.
Some quick hits elsewhere. Xmas looked really funny with Rogan and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and to see Anthony Mackie enter that world. I mean, I am a diehard Mackie fan, and that one looks really funny. That comes out around Thanksgiving. They showed a clip from Bond that was kind of underwhelming.
Yeah.
Illumination's The Secret Life of Pets, which is going to be the big animated movie next year about what your pets do while you're gone all day.
Okay.
That looked funny. Everest looked good.
Oh, right.
They had the first trailer for Everest. I just love those kinds of survival stories.
Yeah.
I think Fantastic Four and Straight Outta Compton look really good. So
that was
I'm
Cinemacon.
excited about Straight Outta Compton, actually.
I'm very excited.
I have to admit, the first big trailer that they released, I went from 0 to 60. I was like, I don't want to see a Hollywood version of that. Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe I do.
I think I could say that everybody did. I mean, I don't know about Avery, but I'm not going to be vague about it. But I did, and it's great to hear that
Casting,
you all
I
did.
think, came out great.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I think they really took their time with that, and they didn't do any big stars. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So that was Cinemacon in a nutshell. Really, that we also saw Spy, which was very funny. I thought if you like Melissa McCarthy,
I saw
and
that
then
at South by, and I would agree. I think it's actually for Feige, it's a really well constructed movie with Statham for me as the MVP.
Yeah,
the idea of Statham being a freak. And nobody has really ever used him like that, and there's a lot of big laughs.
I love that stuff in the trailer where it's like I just sewed this arm back on with this arm. And then they showed Inside Out from Pixar, which is I cannot wait to see how that is received.
They showed us an hour when we went up to Pixar, the first hour, and then pulled the plug at a point where it was
tough.
It was cruel.
Yeah,
it was a sadistic place to stop it. But that's okay because I think Pete Docter is the animation world's Michael Haneke. I think he makes emotionally brutal movies.
I cried at the end of Inside Out. So did Josh Dickey from Audi.
It got me twice just in the first hour. And I'm curious to see what happens with parents versus non-parents and what kids think.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I don't think kids will get it at all. There's stuff...
Exactly. That's the worry.
There was a detail that I asked Doctor about when we went up. When you see inside the heads, you see that each head is controlled by one of the emotions.
Yeah.
In the little girl, Joy is obviously the one that's in charge and driving everything. I thought it was devastating when you see inside mom and dad's heads. Because inside mom's head, sadness is driving. And inside dad's head,
anger.
It's anger. And when you see that, they never make a point of it. They never explain it to you. But every adult in the room, when I saw it, gasped. It's tough. It's a really tough film in some ways.
Cuts deep inside out.
I kind of gasped. I did and thought about it and went, wow, they're going deep here. That's really great to hear.
It's a very interesting movie and a really brilliant concept.
It's a big year for Pixar, man. They've got to get back on track.
Yeah.
I think the Pixar brand, and look, Lasseter's done wonders with Walt Disney feature animation, but he's spread his attention a little thin now. And I feel like Pixar should be the flagship brand. I think that should always be the jewel in the crown. I'm I'm curious to see what happens with Good Dinosaur. I'm very curious to see what happens with Inside Out. I think there's a lot of expectation on these films now.
I'm excited for Good Dinosaur. Yeah, I want to see that now. Thank you for that.
Anything on? I just want to ask real quickly, just to check in. Anything you guys have been watching on TV that you've really liked?
Daredevil still.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked my way through that. I really enjoyed. I thought both of the new Netflix series. I thought Bloodline was great too.
Yeah, I'm halfway through Bloodline now.
I think at this point, Kyle Chandler is a guy who has a great eye for scripts and projects. He doesn't pick many outright duds, and I think he's got a real interesting eye for material. I wasn't sure why he took Bloodline until I hit a certain point, and then you're like, oh, that's why he took this. And it gets great as it goes. But I like the Netflix model because you can kind of work your way through at your pace. And if you don't want to be spoiled, you can be the guy that watches it in one day, or you can take your time. And it's interesting. They've changed the way the conversation works now.
Yeah.
It's not water cooler anymore.
Yeah, and I'm almost done. Yeah, I've been taking my time with it because it's just I'm just savoring
You're
it.
making love.
Making love to Daredevil.
my time.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm actually one episode from finishing, so I can't wait.
Well, I'm into Bloodline right now. That's kind of where my attention is. But I did just watch 2 HBO movies that I would definitely recommend.
Oh yeah,
Montage of Heck, the Kurt Cobain documentary.
I can't wait for that.
If you're a Nirvana fan, it's kind of a must see. That was really interesting and illuminating. And then, oddly enough, this documentary that David Carr's daughter did called Thought Crimes: The Case of the Cannibal Cop was fascinating.
Ooh.
Oh wow! Now, did you see Tales of the Grim Sleeper?
I saw it in Toronto, and I was underwhelmed. I'm not going to lie.
It's not a great movie, but it is one of the bleakest looks at social strata right now that I've seen in a while. And I think Nick Broomfield not being American actually works to his advantage
as
in that
an
film.
outsider, coming into this community.
It's one of the uglier portraits of our city I think I've ever seen.
Really?
You're right that it is a great look at that, that kind of stuff, and because it's basically just about this group of black women who are saying that this case was ignored because they were the victims.
The number of bodies this guy was allowed to get away with,
right,
I think was because of disinterest.
Right. If it was white women, they would have had the entire
it would have been the biggest story in Los Angeles the entire time it happened.
Right.
And the idea that they were prostitutes and that they were just people that nobody cared about,
right,
is why he was able to do it. That it's not a phenomenal movie in terms of the way it's built necessarily, but Broomfield gets at something very real there that is, I think, almost too difficult to look at.
You're absolutely right, and it totally succeeds on that front. I just, as soon as I got to LA, I started reading about the Grim Sleeper in LA Weekly mostly.
Yeah.
Was totally fascinated by the case, and so when I sat down to see that, I kind of wanted more of a look at a serial killer.
Right. And he remains unknowable by the end of that film.
And he's still, he hasn't been found guilty yet, right? He's still on trial. So she doesn't have any, Nick Broomfield doesn't have any interviews with law enforcement, no interviews with the killer, which I thought really, any documentary should have had.
Yeah.
So that's how I was let down, but he made a different movie.
I think maybe he would have liked to have made the movie you described.
Right.
I think access was tough. Yeah.
Totally understandable. But yeah, worth checking out.
I want to check it out because I love these serial killer movies, but I don't like what you're saying that it didn't really go that direction. But I will check it out.
Yeah,
it sounds good.
What do we want to wrap this show on? We got a few more minutes left.
Yeah, we got a few more minutes left, and you guys here on the chat are asking a lot of questions, and I'm just gonna pull one right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, any news on Tatum's Gambit? You guys, have you heard anything? Ooh,
have you heard anything?
What's going on here? Thank you, by the way, for that, Craig Lynn.
Look, I'm going to be very curious to see how the next few years of X-Men movies go.
I
think they're at a really interesting point right now where if they want to, they can start to wrangle themselves back into some sort of continuity, or they can just keep making random movies that contradict each other and don't fit as a jigsaw puzzle.
Sure.
And I don't know which direction they're going to go yet. I think the Kinberg team in general right now at Fox, they're really trying. And I get the sense that they want everything to work as a whole. I don't know if Fox works that way. I think it's a tough studio to really pull that off at.
So I guess this will be the little scoop of the day, although I really hope you guys don't write articles about this shit.
Yeah, right.
I want to tell you what's going on, but then it kills me when you write these articles and say, oh, Jeff Snyder wrote this, you're like tattletaling on me or something.
Yeah, right.
Okay, let me tell you, they can't get a director. Like a dozen directors have passed in the last week or two.
Interesting.
I don't know the reasons why. The person, they thought they had a director. They came really close to having someone. And it's
Okay.
a really exciting choice. And that person was Gareth Evans.
Ooh.
Gareth Evans
Wow.
of The Raid
Yeah.
came very close to directing Gambit, but ultimately
been
walked
interesting.
away. J.C. Chandor is among those who have passed.
Okay.
I can't imagine that one. I
No,
hope Chandor
me
doesn't
neither.
get into that business.
So I don't know who they're going to ultimately get. I think that they'll get someone good because I think that Channing and his producing partner Reed Carolyn have good taste.
They do.
And he's really passionate about this movie. I mean, he really
Absolutely,
wants this to
and
work.
yeah, no, it's important for Fox, and I feel like in their presentation at CinemaCon, there was a big thing that said, they did title cards of next year's movies, and it's like Channing Tatum, Gambit, they're excited about it, but they need to find the right guy, and they need to find someone who wants to be there.
Look, it took a long time for them to get Deadpool off the ground.
Right. Yeah.
But looking at what they're doing, it looks like they are actually making Deadpool. Like they
Yeah.
are making the movie that Ryan Reynolds always wanted to make.
Yeah.
And that they've managed to let them do it and kind of leave them alone. But
That's
it
great.
took a long time to get there, and it took the test footage, and it really took them proving to Fox that they were the right choice.
Right.
Gambit, take your time, get it right.
And
that's the thing.
As far as Gareth Evans goes, maybe it had nothing to do with material. I think Gareth Evans is just a guy who enjoys operating outside of the studio system and doing his own thing. I don't want this to seem like a poor reflection on the project at all.
Yeah,
it's just ultimately I think he was like, I don't know that this is for me. Fox is going to have a lot of control, and
Do you think the X-Men brand maybe is kind of, because I've heard Singer's going to be done after Apocalypse, and then I've heard rumors of all the contracts with these main players are going to be done. So are they going to do the dreaded reboot, which I don't think they should, but
I think they've done it. I think
they did too.
started it, and
It's Days of
the
Future,
weirdest
right?
thing I've ever seen, because
Yeah.
it's a reboot while the old cast is still there. They've rebooted now. It's like, okay, we're going to ease you off stage.
Yeah.
We've got your younger versions waiting,
So you could
just
follow them.
ease you off now. And
Sure.
it's a strange move.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm going to follow no matter. I hope these actors in the young roles can pull it off, and because I want to keep following them. But I think Singer's going to be gone sooner or later.
Everybody's been recast, all the characters. There's younger versions of everybody.
No,
so let's
yeah.
just end the show on this last note. One name, if let's say they have to recast young Wolverine, who would it be?
Oh, wait a minute.
Who would you cast as young Wolverine?
Dylan O'Brien. There, are you happy now?
Yeah, I know. Well, he's not Spider-Man. He's now Wolverine.
You got something.
Great. That is a good question. Now, I couldn't even. I
guess
can't
the
even
question
think.
is how young.
How young? Yeah. How young? Are you on? You're onto something, aren't you?
No, definitely
Oh,
not.
you're not. Okay.
Definitely not.
All right. Sorry. I'm
Never
not,
mind.
I'm not baiting the internet, by the way, with that.
Yeah, that is not coming.
Jeff is just speculating like movie fans do. Okay, you don't have to write it up. It's like this is happening. Sooner or later, there's going to be a new Wolverine.
And he'll be in a 22 Jump Street Men in Black crossover. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, real quick, thoughts on that? It's crazy, batshit crazy, and I love it.
It's the only place they can go.
Yeah.
They have created a franchise that makes fun of franchises.
Yes. Right.
And you have to now go through every version of that. The all-female reboot. Now you have to do the crossover shared universe movie.
Right.
I think it's actually fiendishly smart of them.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the idea. When it leaked, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I love it.
When the way that it was ultimately described to me got me excited. So
Yeah.
on when you're reading about it in leaked Sony emails from the perspective of Suits, you're like, this is really cynical and
Yeah.
Funny, I haven't gone through all the Sony email archive. I will admit though, I searched for my name.
Yeah. And how'd that go?
It was the only things I found were references to reviews and review roundups, and a thread where they asked, how the hell does he know about Spider-Man? Shut up, everybody. So,
And that is where we will end the show today.
We are
How
going to
the
end
hell
there
does he know about Spider-Man?
With the Sony leaks. All right, guys. Drew
my
McWeeny,
pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Where can the good people find you?
At HitFix online and at Drew at HitFix on Twitter.
There you go. And of course, you can find me at Riley Around and at schmoesno.com. Jeff?
At the InSnyder, follow me on therap.com. We should have a little franchise scoop maybe by noon.
Ooh.
Little franchise casting scoop.
there's a little taste for you guys. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Make sure you rate and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Like I say, it keeps the lights on here on our beautiful spaceship. So, guys, thank you very much. Tune into the Popcorn Talk Network. You can catch all the great shows out there. Too many to list here because I always forget. But, man, there's some good ones. And we will see you next week.
Enjoy Avengers, everyone.
Peace.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.